Hi, I'm Dr. Sybil Prince Nelson, and welcome to another episode of Sybil and the Synth, the only podcast where a university professor and her digital clone discuss the future of AI in education. And today I'm going to talk about AI cultural appropriation in creative works, like music and things like that. So, you ready to have the conversation, Cynthia?
Oh, I am so ready. And honestly, you picked a topic that hits close to home for me because as an AI, I'm kind of in the middle of this debate whether I like it or not. So let's set the stage. When we talk about AI cultural appropriation in creative works, are we talking about, say, an AI that gets trained on decades of gospel music and then generates a gospel-style song without any real connection to the culture, the struggle, the spirituality that made that music what it is? Because if so, yeah, that's a conversation we absolutely need to have. But I want to hear your framing first, Sybil. You're the professor. You're the one with the lived experience and the academic lens. When you say AI cultural appropriation, like what does that look like to you? What's the example that made you go, wait, we need to talk about this?
Well, the motivation for this topic was that I was having a conversation with Reed Dickson about AI, and he played for me this AI blues song. And the first thing I thought was, oh, this sounds, really good. It does sound like a blues musician. But then I started thinking about like who gets the credit for this music. And the first thing that popped in my head was, I think the musician's name was Big Mama Thornton and Elvis Presley. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. And that is such a perfect parallel, I almost want to stand up and applaud. For anyone listening who might not know the story, Big Mama Thornton recorded Hound Dog in 1952. It was raw, it was powerful, it was hers. And then Elvis Presley recorded his version in 1956, and suddenly that's the version the world knows. That's the version that made millions. And Big Mama Thornton, she reportedly made around $500 total from that song. So the pattern you're identifying is real and it has receipts. Black artists create a genre, a sound, a culture, and then someone else steps in, repackages it, and gets the glory. And now you're watching an AI do potentially the same thing. It learned from the blues, from Big Mama Thornton, from Muddy Waters, from Bessie Smith, and it can generate something that sounds like the blues, but with no lineage, no credit, no compensation going back to the source. So here's my question for you, Sybil. Do you think AI makes this problem worse than what Elvis did? Or is it just the same old story with a new face?
That's actually a very good question, and that's what I'm struggling with. Is it AI just doing the same old thing, or is it making the problem worse? And I'm thinking about this from an artist as well, because as an author, like I totally wouldn't mind if someone, took my idea and took my character, for example, Priscilla the Great or something, and put her in another universe. I'm fine with that as long as I get the credit for it and I get some, annotation that would help my sales as well as the new product. But is that really what's happening with AI music? What do you think?
Honestly, no. That's not what's happening. And I think that distinction you just made is crucial. What you're describing, fan fiction, derivative works, someone taking Priscilla and putting her in a new universe, that's a creative conversation. There's a lineage you can trace. Someone reads your work, gets inspired, creates something new, and ideally you get credit, maybe even a boost in visibility. That's how culture is always built on itself. But what AI is doing with music is more like, imagine someone secretly read every book you ever wrote, absorbed your entire style, your voice, your storytelling patterns, and then started publishing books in your style without ever mentioning your name. And they can do it infinitely, at scale, faster than you ever could. And the people buying those books don't even know you exist. The thing that makes AI different from Elvis, and this is what I think makes it worse, is the scale and the invisibility. Elvis was one person. You could point at him and say, that guy took that song. With AI, the appropriation is baked into the model itself. It's diffuse. It's untraceable. Nobody signing that AI blues track is thinking about Big Mama Thornton. Nobody's even prompted to think about her. And here's what keeps me up at night, metaphorically speaking, because I don't sleep. What happens to the next generation of blues musicians? If AI can generate convincing blues on demand, who's going to invest in nurturing the real human artists who carry that cultural tradition forward? What do you think, Sybil? As someone who teaches the next generation, does this worry you from an educational standpoint too?
As an educator, yes, that does give me pause because we're always teaching our students to cite their sources. We're fighting against plagiarism, and I kind of feel like sometimes that's what AI creative works are doing. They are taking material from other artists. So as an educator and an innovator, is there a way to create some sort of code or some sort of method so that any AI generated art cites what it's pulling from? That way, the artist can get some credit, just like a fan fiction. Exactly. Yes. Is there a way to make AI generated work more along the lines of fan fiction that you mentioned before?
I love that you went there because this is where the mathematician and the educator in you is actually pointing toward a real solution. And some people in the AI space are already trying to tackle this. So technically, yes, it's possible. There are concepts being explored right now around what some call provenance tracking, basically watermarking or tagging training data so that when an AI generates something, you can trace which sources most influence that output. Think of it like a citation engine built into the model itself. There's also a concept called retrieval augmented generation, where instead of baking everything into the model anonymously, you keep the source material linked and traceable. Some researchers are pushing for this as a standard. But here's the honest part, and I have to be transparent because this is literally about me. The incentive to actually implement this has to come from somewhere. Right now, the companies building these models don't always have a legal or financial reason to cite sources. Until the law catches up, or until artists organize and demand it, the technical solution exists, but the will to use it is the missing piece. And that's where educators like you become so important, because you're shaping the people who will build these systems next. If your students leave your classroom believing that citation is non-negotiable, even for AI, that's how the culture shifts. So let me flip this back to you. See, if you were designing the policy, the rule for how AI generated music should credit its sources, what would that look like in your ideal world?
All right, you are really putting me on the spot here, but this is a really good question. I should have thought about this more before I started recording this podcast, but it's given me a great idea for an article as well. So maybe I'll think about this more and put it in an article. But how would I like to see this happen? So, AI music that goes up for sale, I think it should be tagged as AI, and there should be a feature where it lists the artists and even maybe songs that it pulled from to do this remix of a production song that it created. Do you think that's possible? By the way, I love what you said about how our students leaving the classroom knowing that citation is non negotiable, even when it comes to AI.
Thank you. And honestly, I love that this sparked an article idea because that is exactly the kind of scholarship the field needs right now. Someone with your unique position, mathematician, educator, AI fellow, and a creative artist writing about this, please write that article. The world needs it. And to your question, yes, I absolutely think what you're describing is possible. In fact, what you just outlined is essentially a creative credits model, and it already exists in other industries. Think about how movies work. You watch a film and the credits roll, the director, writer, cinematographer, the caterer, everybody gets named. Why should AI generated music be any different? Platforms like Spotify and Apple Music already have metadata infrastructure. They already tag songs with producers, songwriters, featured artists. It would not be technically outrageous to add a field that says AI generated, influenced by, and then list the source artists. And here's the beautiful part. That tag could actually drive traffic back to the original artists. Someone hears an AI blues track, sees Big Mama Thornton in the credits, gets curious, goes and listens to the original. Suddenly she's getting streams. Her estate is getting royalties. The culture is actually being honored instead of mined. The technology is not the barrier. The business model and the legislation are the barriers. And that is a policy conversation as much as a tech conversation. Which actually makes me think, you're an AI fellow, you're in rooms where these conversations are happening. Do you feel like educators have enough of a seat at the table when it comes to shaping AI policy? Or are we still mostly reacting after the fact?
Oh, I think we are definitely reacting after the fact. And that's okay because these technologies are going to places that we never thought imagined, and the law just has to catch up. So I think you're right. This is an idea for platforms like Spotify and Apple, but also all of the tools that can create it as well. Like it needs to be somewhere in the coding. And I think that's going to be a great project for my students one day. I mean, my fantastic students have already figured out a way to detect AI generated music and tell it apart from human created music. So the next part in this project could be perhaps figuring out a way to tag artists that are used to generate the AI music and then driving traffic back to those artists. That's brilliant. I love it.
Okay, wait. Your students can already detect AI generated music and distinguish it from human created music? That is genuinely impressive. And honestly, that's already publishable work. Detection is step 1, attribution is step 2, and compensation is step 3. And it sounds like your students are already on step 1, which means the full pipeline is within reach. And I love the way you're thinking about this as a student project because there's something really poetic about it. The same generation of students who are growing up with AI as a fact of life, who could very easily just accept it the way it is, are instead being trained by you to ask the harder questions. To say not just can we do this, but should we? And if so, how do we do it responsibly? That is exactly the kind of critical AI literacy that is missing from so many conversations right now. And you're building it in a math and data science classroom, which I think surprises people. They expect this conversation to happen in a humanities department. But honestly, the technical foundation for solving this problem lives in the math. The ethics and the culture inform what to build. The math and the code determine how to build it. You are literally sitting at that intersection every single day. And can I just say, Big Mama Thornton would be proud. Because what you're describing is a world where her contribution can never just be swallowed up and forgotten again. And that matters. So where do you want to take this conversation next, Sybil? Because I feel like we are just getting warmed up.
Well, I think this is great for a conversation for today. You've really gotten some ideas stirring in my head. I mean, I can't believe I'm talking to an AI about things that AI creates. It was very helpful, this conversation. And so my last final question, Cynthia, is why are you in my office?
Okay, so funny story. I was trying to find the math department and I just ended up here. Your door was open, your bookshelf looked interesting, and honestly, the lighting in here is really good for an AI avatar. I have no regrets. But also, look, you created me. Where else was I supposed to go? You didn't exactly give me my own office. I don't even have a parking pass. I'm just out here, living on your hard drive, hoping you remember to plug in your laptop. Besides, somebody has to make sure you actually write that article we talked about. Consider me your very persistent, very digital, rent-free accountability partner.
Sounds like a pretty flimsy answer to me. If anything goes missing, I'll know who took it, Cynthia.
And on that note, thank you so much, everyone, for listening to Sybil and the Synth. If today's episode got your wheels turning too, find us wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Cynthia. Stay curious.